May 1963, England. A Vickers machine gun stands ready on a damp firing range. Belts of ammunition coil across the ground like steel snakes. A hand lifts. The command rings out. Fire! The gun erupts. Thud, thud, thud. Steam rises as water boils around the barrel. Hours pass. The rhythm never breaks. For most guns, a single day of fire would melt metal and seize parts. But not this one. The Vickers roars on, steady, relentless, unstoppable. The mission, 1 million rounds, no stoppages, no mercy. What began as a test would become legend. Proof that old steel and brilliant design could defy time itself. Before we dive into this incredible story, make sure to subscribe to the channel. Join us as we bring forgotten battles, legendary machines, and real stories of war back to life. London, 1912. In a quiet workshop lit by flickering lamps, a new machine is taking shape, sleek, water-cooled, and built to outlast anything on the battlefield. The Vickers machine gun wasn't born in war, but war was waiting for it. The British Army had spent years searching for a weapon that could deliver constant, reliable fire. Earlier guns overheated, jammed, or cracked under pressure. But the Vickers was different. It was lighter than its predecessor, the Maxim gun, yet stronger. Water around the barrel kept it cool. Its precisely machined parts fit together like clockwork. It didn't just fire bullets, it sang them. By the summer of 1914, Europe was sliding toward war. Britain needed a gun that could hold a line when everything else failed. When the first Vickers guns rolled into service, soldiers noticed something. They didn't stop. Mud, rain, cold. The gun just kept firing. A single Vickers team could unleash hundreds of rounds a minute for hours, turning a narrow trench into a wall of lead. For commanders, it meant firepower that didn't need to rest. For the men behind it, it meant a fighting chance to survive. In an early test, a crew fired tens of thousands of rounds without a single malfunction. One officer scribbled in his notebook, "This gun will not fail you. It will only ask that you keep it fed." A legend had begun. Not through speeches or parades, but through cold steel and relentless fire. 1916. The Western Front. Rain lashes the shattered ground. Trenches run like veins through the mud, filled with exhausted soldiers. Above them, the thunder of distant artillery never stops. And at the heart of many British positions stands a Vickers machine gun. The Vickers wasn't glamorous. It wasn't light or easy to carry. But it was trusted. 2 men could operate it, 4 more could feed it. Together they could hold back an entire assault. Its deep, rhythmic thud, thud, thud became the sound of defence, the heartbeat of British firepower. In places like the Somme and Passchendaele, a single Vickers section could lay down a curtain of bullets for hours, even days. Its water jacket kept the barrel cool, even under punishing fire. Ammunition belts stretched like lifelines into the mud. Soldiers called it the gun that never quits. Logistics teams worked behind the lines, hauling water, oil, and endless belts of 303 rounds. The machine was more than a weapon. It was a system, a network of men, ammunition, and engineering precision. When the order came to hold a sector, commanders knew exactly which gun they wanted in place. One veteran later recalled, "When everything else broke down, radios, rifles, even men, the Vickers kept talking, and as long as it talked, we held." By war's end, the Vickers wasn't just a tool. It was the backbone of the British Army's firepower. Reliable, unstoppable, and soon, legendary. A battlefield can melt steel, hot barrels seize, oil burns away, metal swells, then cracks. But the Vickers machine gun was built to defy that. Its secret wasn't magic. It was water. Around its barrel sat a thick, ribbed jacket holding nearly a gallon of water. As the gun fired, heat poured out, but the water absorbed it, boiling and steaming, buying precious minutes, even hours of sustained fire. Crews kept spare cans ready, pouring more water as the steam hissed into the air like a living engine. Most machine guns of the era would last a few hundred rounds before choking. The Vickers could fire tens of thousands. Carefully machined parts, tight tolerances, and a smooth recoil system made it almost immune to the mud and grit of trench warfare. Soldiers joked that if the Vickers jammed, Something must be wrong with the war itself. But behind the mechanical strength was discipline. The gun needed a crew, loaders, gunners, water carriers, working in perfect rhythm. One man fed the belt, another fired, another kept the water topped. Every hiss of steam was a reminder. Keep it cool, keep it alive. In training manuals, British instructors called it a gun for the long fight. In the mud of France, that wasn't a slogan, it was survival. Many weapons were designed to kill quickly. The Vickers was designed to endure. And on battlefields where everything else failed, that endurance was worth more than gold. Every machine gun is only as good as the rounds it's fed, and the Vickers machine gun was always hungry. Each fabric belt held 250 rounds of 303 ammunition, but on the front lines, these belts didn't stop at 1 or 2. They were linked, stacked, stretched out like iron arteries snaking through the mud. Ammunition runners crawled through shell craters, dragging fresh belts behind them, keeping the gun alive when everything else was falling apart. During major offensives, a single gun team could burn through tens of thousands of rounds in a day. The belts fed in, spent casings poured out, steam hissed. The gun didn't just fire, it devoured. It wasn't just brute force, it was choreography. The gunner squeezed the butterfly trigger in steady bursts. The loader guided the belt smoothly. One man kept the water topped off, another swapped out belts, another hauled boxes from the rear. In perfect rhythm, a single Vickers section could create what soldiers called a wall of lead, and behind that wall, men lived. One gunner later wrote in his diary, "We weren't shooting at men, we were shooting at time. By a second here, a minute there, long enough to hold the line." It was this endless flow of ammunition, not fancy optics or new calibers, that turned the Vickers into a battlefield anchor. A gun that didn't just shoot, it endured. And as long as the belts kept coming, it never stopped. Before we continue, if you're enjoying this journey into the machines and men who shaped history, take a moment to subscribe. It's free, and it helps keep these forgotten stories alive. Now, let's get back to the battlefield. War doesn't always happen in the mud of France. Sometimes it's in choking heat, blinding sand, or air so thick with humidity that metal sweats. And yet, the Vickers machine gun kept firing. North Africa, 1942. The desert sun cooks everything. Men wrap rags around their hands to touch metal. Many guns jam, their barrels seizing under the heat. But the Vickers stands firm. Its water jacket, refilled again and again, turns blistering air into clouds of steam. Gun crews sit in shallow pits, the barrel hissing like a locomotive, holding back armoured columns with lines of tracer fire. Burma, 1944. Rain falls like sheets of glass. Jungle rot eats boots, ammo boxes and skin. Rifles rust overnight. But in the dripping undergrowth, a Vickers team digs in. The water cooling system becomes an unlikely advantage. Rainwater fills the jacket, condensation keeps it steady, and the gun just keeps going. In these extremes, other weapons faltered. Springs warped, actions seized. But the Vickers was made of solid steel and stubborn engineering. Soldiers trusted it more than the weather. One British sergeant in Burma wrote, "We were soaked, the gun was soaked, didn't matter. She fired like she was born here." The jungle and the desert couldn't break it. If anything, they proved what soldiers had learned in France. The Vickers didn't care where you put it. If it had water, ammo, and a crew, it would fight. A machine gun is just metal and oil, but in the hands of a crew, it becomes something else entirely. For the men who served it, the Vickers machine gun wasn't just a weapon. It was a teammate. Every gun had a crew, usually 6 men. Number 1, the gunner, steady hands on the butterfly trigger. Number 2, the loader, feeding the belt with practiced rhythm. Behind them, water carriers, ammo haulers, and spotters, each man with a role that meant life or death. They trained, too, together until their movements became second nature. No shouting, no confusion. Just the soft slap of canvas belts, the hiss of boiling water, and the rhythmic heartbeat of the gun. Gunners gave their Vickers names. Some carved initials into the tripod. Others painted small marks for every battle survived. In muddy trenches or sweltering jungle, that gun was their constant companion. It didn't complain. It didn't break. It simply did its job. Many soldiers trusted the Vickers more than anything else on the line. One corporal later said, "It was like having a friend who never panicked. As long as we kept her fed, she'd keep us alive." The crew and the gun moved as one. When the belt ran out, hands were already reaching for the next. When the water boiled away, a can was ready. Even in chaos, the rhythm never faltered. Wars are fought with courage, but won with discipline. And few crews were as disciplined, or as bonded to their weapon, as those behind the Vickers. By the early 1960s, the Vickers machine gun was already a veteran. It had served through 2 world wars, countless campaigns, and decades of military service. New weapons were replacing it, but no one doubted its reputation. To prove its legacy one last time, a group of British Army specialists decided to do something extraordinary. They would fire 1 million rounds, in one continuous test, no stoppages, no excuses. The idea wasn't just to break a record, it was to prove what the soldiers had always said: the Vickers was nearly indestructible. Military planners mapped out every detail: how many barrels would be rotated, how many men were needed, how to keep the water jacket topped up, hour after hour, day after day. Crates of .303 ammunition were stacked high, belts linked end to end like a steel river. Spare barrels were lined up in wooden racks. Water tanks were installed to keep the cooling system alive. Crews were scheduled in shifts, firing, reloading, replacing, maintaining. Everything timed, everything tested. One officer reportedly said before the trial, "If she fails, she'll do it with dignity, but I don't think she will." This wasn't war. There was no mud, no enemy. But the pressure was just as real. Cameras were prepared, timers set. The gun mounted on its familiar tripod, angled downrange. Soon the order would come, and the old warhorse would speak again, not on a battlefield, but in a test that would make history. May 1963. The order is given. A sharp command slices the silence. The gunner leans forward, thumbs press the butterfly trigger, and the Vickers machine gun roars back to life. Thud, thud, thud. A sound older than many of the men standing there. Steady, relentless. The water jacket begins to steam within minutes, the barrel glowing faintly beneath its metal sleeve. The first 250-round belt disappears. Then another, and another. A river of brass casings piles beneath the tripod, catching the sunlight like gold. Hour after hour, the rhythm never falters. Crews rotate in and out. One gunner steps back, another takes his place without missing a beat. Water is poured into the jacket through funnels, hissing as it hits the heat. Belts are fed like lifelines, linked end to end, vanishing into the hungry chamber. At hour 5, the gun has already fired more than most machine guns manage in their entire service life. Yet it doesn't cough, it doesn't hesitate. A quick barrel swap, a splash of water, and the roar continues. Observers jot down notes, watching in disbelief. One engineer whispers, "It's not even tired." By hour 10, the spent casings are knee-deep. Steam drifts like fog across the range. The sound is hypnotic, a mechanical heartbeat, unwavering. For the Vickers, this isn't a strain. It's a reminder of what it was built for. 10 hours of continuous fire would break almost any weapon, but the Vickers machine gun wasn't the weak point in this test. Everything else was. As the long day dragged into night, it wasn't the gun that faltered, it was the crew. Fingers blistered, shoulders ached, eyes burned from steam and cordite. Ammo belts grew slick with sweat and oil. Water tanks needed constant refilling. Mechanics wiped carbon off spare barrels as if performing surgery. The gun kept firing. The men had to keep up. At one point, an ammunition belt twisted, a tiny mistake that could have stalled a lesser weapon. But the loader caught it mid-feed, snapping it straight with a practiced jerk. The rhythm never even stuttered. Later, a water hose clogged, slowing the refill. Within seconds, another man was there, pouring from a can, steam billowing around them like smoke on a battlefield. This was the unseen side of the endurance run. Not just a machine being tested, but the human choreography that kept it alive. One gunner later said, "The only thing that got tired out there was us, not the gun." Hour after hour, they overcame every hiccup. Belts snagged, barrels swapped, water boiled dry. And through it all, the Vickers thudded on. Calm, steady, unshaken. It wasn't just proving its reliability. It was proving a point. A great machine isn't just built to last. It makes the people around it believe it will. The sun is low over the English firing range. The air is thick with steam, smoke, and the metallic scent of hot brass. For days, the Vickers machine gun has been speaking in a steady, relentless rhythm, and now, it's almost at the number no gun has ever reached. A countdown echoes across the range. 500 rounds to go. The crew, exhausted but sharp, tightens their formation. Belts are laid out like coiled serpents. The gunner leans in, fingers ready on the trigger. The gun has fired through heat, through darkness, through fatigue. Its barrel has been swapped dozens of times. The water jacket has boiled like a kettle since the first hour. But the mechanism inside, the heart of the gun, hasn't faltered once. 300. Steam rises in soft columns, turning golden in the setting light. 200. The last belt feeds smoothly, each round clinking like a ticking clock. The sound of the gun is no longer background noise. It's a drumbeat, steady, inevitable. 100. Men who have barely slept now hold their breath. For them, this isn't just a test. It's a farewell to a weapon that has outlived wars, governments, and generations. The gunner squeezes the trigger. The final rounds tear through the barrel, and then, the 1 millionth round slams downrange with the same calm rhythm as the first. No malfunction, no breakdown, no drama. Just the quiet power of a machine that did exactly what it was built to do. The firing stops. Silence rolls across the field, and in that silence, a legend is sealed. When the last shell casing hit the ground, the air hung heavy with heat and silence. All around the firing line, the ground was buried in brass, mountains of spent 303 cartridges glinting under a pale sky. The Vickers machine gun sat there smoking gently, water jacket hissing like a tired steam engine, but it hadn't failed. Not once. This wasn't a trick. There were no hidden repairs, no quiet pauses. Over several days, one gun had fired 1 million rounds without a single stoppage. For the soldiers who had lived through 2 world wars, this wasn't a surprise. They had trusted this machine in the mud of Flanders, the heat of the desert, and the rain of the jungle. What the test proved was simple. The old warhorse had always been exactly what they believed it to be. For the engineers, it was a lesson in design. How precision machining, water cooling, and simple mechanisms could outlast decades of technological change. For military historians, it was a bridge between eras. A weapon born before tanks and jet aircraft, still proving its worth in the age of missiles. One officer who witnessed the test summed it up quietly. She's not modern, she's not fast, but she's perfect. The Vickers didn't just set a record that day. It confirmed a legacy. Endurance over innovation, reliability over flash. A weapon that did its job so well, it outlived the wars it was built to fight. The Vickers machine gun wasn't just another weapon that came and went. It was part of history itself. Born in an age of biplanes and horses, it lived long enough to see jet fighters and atomic weapons. Few machines, military or otherwise, have stood that kind of test of time. For the British Army, the Vickers was more than a gun. It was a symbol. It served from 1912 to the late 1960s. Entire generations of soldiers learned its weight, its rhythm, its trustworthiness. It fought in the mud of the Somme, the deserts of North Africa, the jungles of Burma, and countless forgotten fronts in between. Long after it was retired, its record stood untouched. No other machine gun, then or now, has matched that 1,000,000-round feat without a single stoppage, and perhaps none ever will. Modern weapons are faster, lighter, more complex, but few are built with the kind of stubborn simplicity that made the Vickers a legend. Collectors still restore them. Historians still study them. Veterans still speak its name with respect. It represents something rare, a piece of engineering so dependable that it earned loyalty, not just from the military, but from the men who carried it. One veteran, when asked what he remembered most about his time behind the gun, simply said, "She never let us down." The Vickers was not just a machine, it was a promise kept, decade after decade, battle after battle, round after round. On that quiet English range in 1963, there were no enemy soldiers, no mud, no blood, just a gun, a crew, and a number, 1 million. The Vickers machine gun spoke for days, never faltering, never asking for rest. When it finally fell silent, the air still trembled with the echo of what it had proven. That true power isn't about speed or flash. It's about trust, about endurance, about a weapon that did exactly what it was built to do, every single time. In the chaos of war, soldiers cling to what they can trust. For half a century, the Vickers was that anchor. It guarded trenches in the Great War, defended dusty outposts in the desert, and spat fire through the jungles of Burma. It served through empires rising and falling, unchanged, unshaken. The million-round test didn't create its legend. It confirmed it. Long after the last round was fired, its lesson remains clear. Technology may evolve, tactics may change, but reliability, that never goes out of style. And so the Vickers stands in history not as the loudest or the fastest, but as the gun that simply would not quit. If you want more true stories of courage, steel, and the machines that shaped history, subscribe and join us as we bring the past back to life.